introduce Chris Eckels, who is an attorney in Salt Lake City, Utah, with a recently published academic publication on flags as hate speech. He joined NAVA in 2020, and Chris is moderating our panel discussion for today, as well as the question and answer portion that's associated with it. And the title of the panel is Inside the Mississippi Flag Change. Chris, over to you.
Thanks, Stan. Thank you all for joining us. I'd like to give a quick shout out here to Joshua Hodge. I see he's got the flag right behind him on his display that we're here to talk about. We have, for our panel today, we will be discussing the effort to redesign the Mississippi state flag. We have a panel today consisting of two members of the Commission to Redesign the Mississippi state flag, Betsey Hamilton, who is from New Albany, Mississippi. She's a retired educator, real estate broker, and appraiser. She served on various boards and currently serves as a member of the Commission on the Future of the Northeast Mississippi, as a founding board member for the Union County Heritage Museum in New Albany, and on the Board of Trustees of the Mississippi Department of Archives and History, which Governor Tate Reeves appointed her to represent on the commission. T.J. Taylor is an attorney and consultant residing in Madison, Mississippi with his wife and two sons. He's currently the executive director of the Mississippi Cable Telecommunications Association. He previously served as the policy director for the Speaker of Mississippi House of Representatives, Philip Gunn, crafting the policy agenda for that office, shepherding the agenda through the legislative process, and leading the policy team. He was involved in the legislative effort to repeal the 1894 Mississippi state flag and form the Commission to Redesign the Mississippi state flag, on which he was appointed to serve by Speaker Gunn. Helping remove the 1894 flag and select a new banner to represent Mississippi has been one of TJ's most rewarding moments. Next on the panel, we have several NAVA members. NAVA member Clay Moss was the vexillographic advisor to the Commission to Redesign the Mississippi state flag, and has previously advised the state of Mississippi on flag design matters in official and unofficial capacities since the early 1980s, including having been the artist for the 2001 Mississippi flag referendum proposed flag. He is responsible for the final artwork at the center of the new Mississippi flag. NAVA members Jim and Brenda McIntyre run a complete flag source, Mississippi's most complete flag and flagpole services, located in the capital, Jackson, Mississippi. They serve not only the entire state of Mississippi and the southeastern U.S., but also the entire country, providing a wide array of U.S., state, military, international, historic, and religious flags and flag accessories. They helped provide prototypes of finalist flag designs for the redesign effort. And then finally, NAVA member Chase Quarterman is a graphic designer working and teaching in Austin, Texas. His work includes book design, identity systems, illustration, comics, type designs, and hand lettering. His interests in corporate identity and branding led him to pursue his master's thesis entitled Mississippi, a Study Investigating Flags and Identity, which I believe was in 2017, which is a love letter to his home state of Mississippi. Just to kind of frame this conversation so that everybody is aware of what we're talking about, this is the 1894 Mississippi state flag, which was in service until 2020. This was the flag that was repealed. And it was replaced by this flag, which is the new Mississippi state flag since the end of 2020. The process for this involved, after the Mississippi legislature passed a piece of legislation to repeal the old flag, they set up a commission to create the new state flag. And TJ, could you maybe tell us a little bit about what the legislature's instructions for this commission were?
Yeah, sure, Chris, absolutely. First, I want to thank you guys for having us. I first found out about NAVA at our first meeting, I think. I guess the Archives and History presented us a pamphlet of good flag, bad flag, and it has some more novel stuff in it. So thank you guys for having us. What the House bill did, it was a weird time. You know, it was 2020 during the pandemic. The legislature we had a weird schedule then. We were in and out of session to keep with COVID protocols. And so it just so happened that this came back up again, the flag. And so it worked its way through the legislative process. And you guys, if you know much about the legislative process, you know, it's like they say sausage making. And so what the bill did, or what it does, is it repealed the flag, created a commission to design a new flag, or well, accept submissions from Mississippians and people all over the country, actually, and maybe the world. And the flag could not have the battle emblem in it. That was one of the requirements, that it could not have that in it.
Yeah, so here I've put up the flag design submission criteria.
And so it had to have "In God We Trust" in it. But other than that, those few things, I mean, they left it up to the commission to decide what worked and what we thought the citizens of Mississippi would like as their flag and would support. It had to go on the ballot in November. And so I think most of the commissions, and Betsey can speak to this later on, I think all of us wanted something that we knew or hoped that Mississippians would support and get behind.
And before we move on with the conversation, just real quick, I've put up a slide here that shows this is the entire commission. You can see that it was 9 members, 3 appointed by the Speaker, Philip Gunn, 3 appointed by Lieutenant Governor Hoseman, and 3 appointed by Governor Tate Reeves. You can see TJ Taylor right here under Philip Gunn, and Betsey Hamilton over here under Tate Reeves. They also included representatives from various constituencies to try to get kind of a broad cross-section of representation for Mississippians having a voice in this process to redesign the flag. So as TJ said, the commission was constrained by these design criteria that were put to them by the legislature. The time frame for the commission to accomplish its work was very tight. The legislature passed this, I think, at the end of June, and the commission was formed in July and had to have a proposal submitted to the governor and the legislature by early September. Betsey, can you tell us a little bit about kind of how the commission approached the process of going through this massive task? They received over 3,000 or close to 3,000 design submissions and had a very tight time frame in which to work through that massive amount of material.
Yes, happy to. And thanks, Chris. And thank you all for inviting us to be a part of it. Really excited and happy to be here. The legislators charged the Mississippi Department of Archives and History for organizing and running the show, so to speak. And I just have to give a shout out to them, because I think their staff did a fabulous job, don't you think, TJ, of organizing and keeping us on task and bringing in Clay. And we also had a graphic designer at our disposal use and for consulting. And so the way that they scheduled it, and but we had some flexibility. We could take designs if there was an element in one design that we wanted to put in another one. We could do that. So we had some flexibility, but we started out, and anybody could make a submission. A child could make a submission. And so that's where the over 3,000 came from. And so the staff at Archives and History went through the first group, and they eliminated the ones that did not have "In God We Trust" on them, and did have the Confederate emblem. So that was the first thing. From that point, we got on their website, we got access to all of the submissions. And I think maybe about 2,500. And the way they had it set up is that all the submissions were online. We logged in and we had a bucket. It's kind of like when you go shopping and you put your items in your cart. So we liked the ones that we wanted, and that went into our bucket, to our cart. And we had to select our top 25 from all of those. So for me, the first thing that I did was just flip through them. Of course, after hearing Clay Moss, we knew that seals weren't good, and we knew that text was not good. So those were the way that I did eliminate in the first round was just eliminate all the ones that had seals, state seals on them, and all the ones that had Mississippi or something else, you know.
And that does present a challenge, given that the legislature somewhat hamstrung you by requiring text to be part of the design of this flag, right?
Right.
And so that does make it a little difficult to choose what might, in this group now, you know, according to the good flag, bad flag criteria, be considered a really great design. Well, you already, by definition, kind of can't get a top tier design just by virtue of that requirement.
Right.
But, yeah. And so then after you each choose your top 25, then what's the process for the next step?
Then we each had to rank. Now we did this all at first. We without being in a meeting. We did this online. And so, I mean, we came together a couple of times and got our instructions and whatever, but we did our top 25. And then I think maybe that gave us maybe 200 and something. I mean, that we could have had that, but I think
you couldn't have had more than 225 at that point.
Well, I think we ended up with about 140 because
I believe it was 147 or so.
Had the same, you know, designs. So from that, we had to rank our top 10. We had to pick our top 10.
From that point, TJ, could you tell us a little bit about how it moved forward as you kind of narrowed the field for these these designs? What was it like for the commission as you sort of winnowed it down to a really smaller number?
Yeah, it was. Again, I related back to making legislation. It was a lot of horse trading. We all talked to each other. We had each other's email addresses, the commissioners, and we said, hey, which ones do you like? Which ones do you, because all of us got our top 25. But once we start narrowing it down, it's okay. We don't all get our top 10. We're narrowing it down to the top 10 now. And so we kind of talked to each other like, hey, what do you like about this one? What don't you like about this one? Okay, well, how do you feel about, this version, and can you support this version? And so it was all in fun, and we all wanted a good flag to present to Mississippians. But it was a lot of well, Betsey, what do you like here? Or I know Betsey and I both, we liked the one flag in particular. It was a magnolia tree flag. I think Betsey liked it green, I think, if I remember, and the flag was blue. And it was a great design, I thought, and Betsey thought so too. And so we both went back and forth about whether it should be blue or should it be green. So that's kind of how we narrowed it down. A lot of,
and that brings up a good point, which is that the commission was not necessarily bound by the submissions, but could use the submissions and kind of modify the submitted designs and take elements from one design that they liked and borrow elements from another design that they liked, or change the color scheme or things like that. Correct?
That's correct. Yep. And then we had our graphic designer, that Betsey Hamilton, that Betsey mentioned, who worked with us if we wanted to, change something here. I remember the original Magnolia flag that I mentioned, the Magnolia tree flag. It had roots at the bottom of it, and a lot of us thought that it looked better without those roots. And so we got with the graphic designer, and she kind of just flattened the bottom out to make it flat. And so we had things like that the entire time while we were going through the submissions.
And so then at a certain point, I guess I'll move forward in the slides here. We can look at some submissions. I've got a few examples here. Some of the submissions that came in were not all entirely serious, or some of them might have been tongue-in-cheek. This one with the mosquito on it is particularly funny, I think. Somebody thought that was the best emblem to represent Mississippi. It was a giant mosquito on a flag. Those of you who are aware of the Stennis flag will recognize, though, that the overall design of the mosquito flag is heavily influenced by the Stennis flag. We've also got this one in the lower right with various, kind of childish symbolism, a teddy bear and an electric guitar and Kermit the Frog. Probably also a joke submission. Then we have some kind of just unusual submissions, like this top flag I thought was really weird because of the way that it mirrors the text, "In God We Trust." So it has it twice, but once is upside down in a way that's impossible to read. and just kind of a very odd design choice to submit that way. There were also some designs submitted that seemed to be overtly referencing the Confederacy and kind of trying to get around the design criteria that you could not include the Confederate battle flag in the design. So this top one, for example, it's very recognizably referencing the Confederate battle flag, but reorienting it vertically rather than as a saltire. This one in the lower right is pretty obviously also trying to, evoke the Confederate battle flag. And then this one in the lower left is using in the canton, the stars and bars, which was the first national flag of the Confederacy, kind of in lieu of the Confederate battle flag, I think. So there were some submissions that were sort of trying to preserve the reference or expressing a desire to preserve a direct reference to the Confederacy, despite the design criteria that you couldn't have the Confederate battle flag. I see that Clay Moss is with us now. Clay, would you like to talk a little bit about the design criteria to include in God We Trust and sort of the challenge that posed from a flag design perspective?
In God We Trust was a mandate of the Mississippi State Legislature. And so, once they put that in there, that it created a challenge in terms of whether or not we were going to get to an actual flag. In my world, once you start putting writing on a flag, you're going to banner. So technically we have a state banner, but culturally that wasn't a big hill to climb for us. Mississippi would say that there are very many Christians and very many church people here. So the motto itself wasn't anything that was going to be a thing of debate here as much as what to do with it in terms of incorporating it into a good flag design.
And we see in these samples on the slides that people approach that in a number of different ways. Going back to the teddy bear one, you can see, and the mosquito flag one too, it's also in very small text. So they're technically satisfying the criteria, but obviously kind of in protest. Some of these others though, we've got the text placed over here near the fly side on the sample here in the upper left corner. We have this one in the upper right is a modification of the Stennis flag to add in God We Trust to that design. And you can see some of these others included additional text like the word Mississippi. So, some of these designs are fairly strong in terms of the good flag, bad flag criteria, and a lot of them don't check many of the boxes in terms of the good flag, bad flag criteria. Clay, what advice did you give the commissioners about how to kind of approach that when they're assessing these designs?
I met them their second meeting. They had an initial first meeting just to meet one another, and then we officially got on to how to go about the design process. I told them basically in good flag, bad flag sort of context, keep it as simple as you can, very simple. The more simple, the better. I showed them a couple of examples of very simple flags and encouraged them to proceed that direction as much as they could.
We also had here, I've got on the left a flag submission by panelist Chase Quarterman. This is a modification of the flag that was one of the flags that he designed in his master thesis project, the Mighty Magnolia flag. He added in God We Trust to that design to submit it. Chase, can you tell us a little bit about how you reached this design?
Sure thing. First off, coming into this, I didn't even know what vexillology was until I decided to pursue this as my thesis topic, and I started digging and found NAVA and TED, and I'm fascinated now by flags and listening to all you guys talk. It's great. I'm still a newbie though. I come from a graphic design background, so identity systems and branding was on the forefront of my mind. My process was reading a lot of history, looking at a lot of other flags that had kind of similar situations, similar kind of hurdles to leap over. One of the examples that I gave in my thesis was the apartheid era flag, which is, seen by many as a hate symbol, very much like the Confederate battle emblem. And then of course the post-apartheid era flag, which kind of merges the Pan-African colors and the Prince and Vlog colors together, kind of uniting things. So it was interesting to see that. And also the New Zealand trying to create a flag that represented the Maori people. So a flag that represented the people that were living, in the place where the flag was supposed to identify the people. So I just started by creating a bunch of simplified symbols of animals and state wildlife, flora, fauna, and then
looking at your
focusing in on
pieces,
the
it really ran the gamut, everything from pop culture figures to flora, fauna.
yeah, like the flag
everything.
with the teddy bear. I had a teddy bear on mine because there's this story about Teddy Roosevelt and the teddy bear. The Kermit the Frog, I had that one. I had a Darth Vader flag, James Earl Jones, kind of a shout out to him. I created 150 flags, just trying to iterate. Some were good, some were not so good.
But ultimately you came around to kind of these two central design ideas, the Mississippi River and the magnolia blossom as kind of core symbolism, right?
Sure. I figured the Mississippi River and the Magnolia State. The Mississippi River is known the world over, and it's extremely famous. It's a namesake. So having both included in there, and then digging in and getting really nerdy about the river could be a timeline. The numbers of the little dimples in the petals could have representation of things, and it was a lot of fun. I just enjoyed kind of learning more about my home state. I did some focus groups. I pitched a bunch of flag designs to different people, Hines Community College, some of my professors from Mississippi College, former professors, and just getting feedback from people, and decided to move forward with this. At that point in 2017, it didn't seem like anything was going to move. Like I didn't feel like anything was going to change. So TJ and Betsey, you guys, I don't know how y'all made a decision so quickly. So kudos for that's got to be tough. That's a tough position to be in.
And I think it probably bears mentioning that the idea of changing the Mississippi state flag is not new in 2020. It's something that has come up numerous times over the years. Yeah. And there have been previous referenda. Clay was involved in a referendum effort in 2001 where he was involved in designing the flag that went on the ballot at that point in time, or rather doing some artwork for that flag. But what changed is kind of the massive nationwide and even international groundswell of support for the Black Lives Matter movement in the wake of the George Floyd killing, which coincided with the pandemic stuff going on, and kind of just this kind of moment in time at the in May and June 2020 created the political will to finally do something to change this. So that, I think, was the driving force behind moving forward with this effort. I want to mention on this slide as well that this design on the right was one that Clay Moss provided to me that I believe he considers to be, under the good flag, bad flag criteria, one of the best, purest submissions that was received. It's very, very simple. It basically takes the current Mississippi state flag and just removes the canton and then adds "In God We Trust," and does so in a very simple, clear text that's very readable. Everything about it is very, very simple. Still doesn't satisfy all the criteria because it has text, but does about as good a job as the legislature's design criteria allowed. Going on, getting back to that kind of winnowing effort, we see some examples here. These are kind of the 9, I guess I'd call them order finalists, sort of. That's the stage of the process they are. And they include, you can see some of those magnolia tree designs that TJ was talking about earlier. Number 4 and number 5 are blue and green variants of that. We see some designs that features, that look a lot like the ultimate winner. We see a couple that include either the outline of the state of Mississippi or even just a portion of the outline that includes on the river side. Those were design elements that showed up in a lot of the submissions. The magnolia blossom or tree, the state outline, Those were common motifs if you look through the 3,000 designs. From this point, what was next for the commission when you got here?
Can I just say that in all of the submissions that the prominent elements were, of course, the magnolia. You know, we're the Magnolia State, it's on our coin, it's been on our welcome signs, it's been on our car tags, it's on top of our historic markers. So it was probably the most predominant graphic. And then also, as you alluded to, the Stennis flag, the circle of stars was on a lot. And so those are elements
and
that
we can see, in fact, on these final 9, it's on all but one of them.
Right. And then the other point, and TJ will remember this, we had a Choctaw chief on the commission. And as we talked about the circle of stars, he suggested and asked that we would have one of those as a diamond star, which is in Native Americans, that's an important symbol for them. And so if we use the circle of stars, Mississippi was the 20th state. If we used that element, then we had an uneven number for the center. So we incorporated it, and you can see it on some of those as the top of the circle.
Or
and,
like in number 7, it's the bottom, but yeah.
But then we moved I think you saw on one where the In God We Trust was at the bottom of the circle. So we incorporated it into the circle and then had an even number of stars on each side of the top one, which represents our First Peoples. And we really liked that we had something that was representative of our Native American tribes. You think, TJ?
And I think that at some point it was either at 9 flags or at the next stage where you narrowed it to 5. And here are the 5 when you got to that step. Jim and Brenda, you were then enlisted to help at that stage with prototyping some designs so that they went from being just a design on a computer screen or on a piece of paper to being an actual cloth flag that they could run up a flagpole and see how it looked waving in real life, correct?
That was the part that I think that we had the biggest part with the commission, was to do some practical suggestions that before they made their final decision, they needed to see how these designs were going to look as an actual flag and how they were going to fly on a flagpole. So the flagpole that we had at the old Capitol, which was near where the commission met, we decided to produce these in 5-foot by 8-foot sizes and have all of them made, which we were able to get one of our production people to make them in 5 days, which was incredible that we were able to get those turned around so quickly. But they made 5 by 8s, and we had them in for them to put on the flagpoles for them to actually see flying. And my statement to the people internally around here was that I felt like that 3 out of the 5 would be narrowed down immediately as soon as they saw them fly, because I did not think that they would be as bold or as readable as they thought they were going to be from looking at them on a piece of paper. But I think that was really helpful for the committee to actually see what they were designing actually on a flagpole and waving in the wind, because I think it makes a huge difference. And I think
TJ and Betsy, was that really useful for you guys to see the real thing?
Oh, absolutely. It was the defining moment.
Yep. I know. I think our first meeting, I asked if we could do that because I thought it would be helpful. But I know it would have been for me to see them on a flagpole instead of on a screen. So Brenda, I didn't know you guys were able to do it in 5 days. That's amazing. But it was extreme.
And I think that it let them, also the committee, make some adjustments that they probably would not have seen that they could do, that made a difference in the final design, even when they got down to 2, by seeing them fly.
And so here are the final 2 that they narrowed it down to. On the left, we see the Magnolia Blossom flag, which became the ultimate choice. And on the right, we have the Great River flag. Were these the ones you thought would survive of the 5, Brenda?
They were.
Yeah.
So there was one that was there. If you go back and look at those, there was one that lots of people loved, the one that was the outline of the state of Mississippi that shows just the riverside kind of the state, the red and blue in the upper right. And of course, I knew that the minute that one flew, they realized on the backside it looked like Alabama. That would never go as the state of Mississippi's flag. If for half of the year we saw it as Mississippi and the other half we saw it as Alabama. So I didn't think that one would work. But, you know, we still have people that are absolutely amazed that the flag is backwards on the other side, and that they've never realized that probably 98% of all state flags are single reverse flags, and everything is going to be reversed on the other side.
And that's one of the reasons that putting text on a flag is kind of not a great idea, right?
That's right. But you know, that was the point of the design, one of the design criteria. So we don't have a choice in that, but it's not just us that has text on our flag. So it's a real common issue with
pretty much any state that has a seal on their flag has text on their flag. And yeah.
But this,
and I believe, by the way, that the Great River flag was also designed by and submitted by a NAVA member, right, if I recall correctly. So a lot of these flag submissions were by, and they weren't all by NAVA members by any means, but I think that the NAVA members were probably prominently represented in the submissions for this design effort. So ultimately,
Chris,
yes.
Chris, can I address those 2?
Sure, absolutely.
So when we had the 5, we were supposed to pick one flag from the 5 that was to go on the ballot. But I'll go back to the polling, because after we got down to the top 9, the public could go in and vote. Well, they could vote all along, but in that round, they could comment. And I will say that the polling was we call it the shield, and it was out of the park. And they did a lot of social media on there. But what we realized in the end is that the 2 flags, if you'll go back to where they're all on there, we had, you can see that the 2 flags, the white that had the white field and the black and the blue field, that are similar. Those 2 going head to head with the shield outpolled the shield. And so when we went back to session, we all decided, and that was so good about the flexibility of the commission, we decided that we wanted to put that we needed 2 flags, because we wanted the shield to go head to head with the circle of stars and with 1. And that was when we really sat in, and Clay was there with us and guided us on that last design.
And that final design that was submitted, this Magnolia flag, this is not actually a direct submission. That, you know, it's a modified design based on a submission, correct?
Correct. Actually, the Magnolia was not the one that was in the design, because it was too floral, I guess, and not simple enough. So this one was absolutely the best.
And then we also see that 5-pointed diamond star that the Native American representative on the commission addressed. And I see Clay Moss is wearing the T-shirt. And that is a really attractive element. I like that they went with that choice personally. The proportions of the flag also, in terms of the bars, the vertical bars, are also kind of reminiscent of the Stennis flag design, as well as the circle of stars. So we see some of those design elements kind of coming through. And this is actually a picture of the commission in front of the ultimate choice that was submitted to the governor and the legislature. And then the public voted in the general election in November and passed the referendum to adopt this as the new state flag for Mississippi. It's really quite an achievement to have gone through from having the legislation first passed in June to kind of start this process, the end of June, to actually having, appointing the commission, going through 3,000 design submissions and getting it to this point in a matter of mere months. The commission's work really in 2 months, basic 2.5 months, and then the the entire process being done in just a few months is really remarkable. There are certainly challenges to flag design by committee, but I think that this is a real success story for how that can go. I think that some of the things that I heard here about how that works well are to try to have a good understanding of what symbols seem to resonate with the public that you're trying to design a flag for. So you guys focused in pretty quickly on the fact that so many of the submissions had the magnolia, that was probably really important symbolism. And kind of listening to the feedback that you were getting from the public to try to make sure that whatever you arrived at was going to be something that they felt an affinity with and that they identified with. I mean, part of the point of changing this flag was that, especially with the Black Lives Matter movement gaining momentum, a significant portion of the populace in Mississippi felt that the state flag containing the Confederate battle flag wasn't a good way to represent particularly Mississippians of color, and that they deserved to feel represented by their state flag. My personal research on flags as hate speech and kind of flags and identity conflict has touched on some of the kind of equal protection challenges posed by a government flag that seems to give preferential treatment to one group of its constituents over another group of its constituents. And I think that for government entities in particular, it's a really important thing to consider. Jim and Brenda, what's it been like in since the flag was adopted? How's it been received? Is it a popular flag?
Very popular flag. It's been very well received. It's brisk sales, but mainly people are excited to have the flag. I think they like it a lot. So that's good. Commission did great.
Excellent. Chase, based on your work on kind of identity branding stuff, how do you feel this flag does at branding Mississippi in a more, I guess, there's the hospitality state kind of reputation of Mississippi. So how do you feel this does at representing that?
I think it did a fantastic job. One thing that I was wondering about how they were going to end up with this is that the blue and red, there's that Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Southern thing. I think throwing in the yellow helps, the Mississippi State and Southern fans feel not so left out. So that plus, other appropriate symbolic representations of the state. Yeah, I think they did a great job. It's unique. I love going home to see my parents and my sister, and I see people flying it out front, and I think it's fantastic. Yeah.
I'm looking through some of the comments here to see if we can answer a few questions before we run out of time.
Can I just say real quick on the gold? That's another term I've learned. I think it's a fimbriation. Is that right, Clay? Fimbriation. Clay told us that we had to have that. So we played with white or gold, and the gold made the magnolia pop better than the white.
It works really well.
That's one comment that we've had is why the gold. So
it connects with the center part of that magnolia really well. So it unifies. I think that was I'm glad y'all went with that.
One of the questions asked about concern that somebody would sneak in a Confederate flag design that was less well known than the Army of Northern Virginia or the Army of Tennessee flags that are commonly recognized as the Confederate battle flag. There were a lot of submissions that included Confederate flags, particularly the Bonnie Blue flag, which is a blue flag with a white star in the center, that wasn't exclusively a Confederate flag, but was used during the Civil War by Confederate military. There was a question about wouldn't designing the Mississippi state flag being an example of vexillography? Clay, you want to address that?
Yeah, I've made the argument in the past that there's a debate, there's always been a debate in vexillology in terms of how clearly you can define it as a science, whereby vexillography is very scientific in terms of the types of designs that are out there, how effective they can be, how important colors are, where you put colors on a flag. 200 years ago, initially, the French and British navies simultaneously investigated colors and emblemery in order to come up with signal flags. And that standard has stood the test of time in terms of how you go about doing that. And so, the colors that we came up with and the location of emblemery and all that, plays a role in I'm going to call it optimal flag design. There's good flag, there's bad flag. Then there's a thing called optimal flag where you get everything just exactly right. And that can be a huge challenge, particularly in the American cultural context. We don't do that well and haven't since the Revolutionary War, but it's process.
And Jim and Betsy, one question was, are people still buying the Stennis flag as well as the new official flag?
Have the Stennis flag, and we still have sales. Sometimes people come in still, well, we have Stennis flags. I have a statement to kind of make that I don't mean this to be controversial. Change is hard. No matter what we do, change is hard. But I think the people in Mississippi have taken this change in stride. Of course, they continue to make chocolate and vanilla ice cream because people have differing opinions. And we still sell the 1894 Mississippi flag, and we'll always, because it is a historical flag. We ride out in the countryside, and you do see people that are still broadcasting their opinion that they're not going to change, as well as the Confederate flag and the Bonnie Blue. And we have a pretty prominent kind of bed and breakfast downtown that flies the flag of the Magnolia. They really like that flag. It seems to bring conversation for their customers, but it's just changes. I think bringing this new flag in was a really major step for our politicians, our legislature, and the people that were involved. I think it was a major step. And to have done all of this in such a short period of time is very remarkable. And I would like to say that Lauren Stennis, that became a friend of ours, with her flag, I don't think we would have a state flag today if it hadn't have been for 4 years of her pushing her flag and bringing people's attention that we could have a new flag. But I think the new Mississippi flag and the new Magnolia flag is kind of a breath of fresh air for Mississippi.
I agree.
One question is, are people still using or are people still buying the 1894 flag?
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
And we have a huge supply, and we continue to remind them that it'll be a flag that we always have, that there's no reason to buy them up and think that they're never going to be available again. As long as they're wanted, it'll be a historic flag, just like the flag of the Magnolia, just like all the other historic flags. I mean, we sell the Louisiana Republic flag. We sell all of the flags of Texas and Georgia and all the other historic flags that the other states have. So why not that one too? So
I get a big kick out of telling people that we've even sold German swastika flags.
But
and it's a historical flag. And and when I tell people that we sell them, they kind of do gasp. And I say, well, we sold that to one of the prominent private schools around here, as a matter of fact, Jackson Prep. And they really, if they know who Jackson Prep is, they really take like their last breath. And they say, why would they buy a German swastika flag? And I said, how can you do the Sound of Music without a German swastika flag? So, you know, we're a little bit historian, we're a little bit vexillologist, but we're a flag company. And Brenda came up with the name. The name of our company used to be American Flag Store. And I didn't like the idea of ever calling it a American, but I didn't like an American flag store. So Brenda came up with a complete flag store.
Yeah. We're just pleased. We're pleased that we were here to be a part of this. It's been very exciting. We appreciate all the hard work.
Well, I believe we're past our time. I would like to thank all the panelists for taking the time to join us today and to share your experiences in helping achieve this really momentous feat in adopting this new state flag, especially on such a tight turnaround and in unusual circumstances due to COVID and the pandemic protocols that we were all working under at the time. Thank you all for watching and for your questions, and I hope that you've enjoyed it.